This is Bethany with Recherche Kennels, and I'm going to talk to you today about creating structure in your home. When your puppy comes home, everyone wants to love the puppy. They want to shower it with affection, with treats, with toys, giving it everything that it could possibly ever want. But something that generally gets left out, especially when the puppy comes home, but even as they are growing, as they are getting older, is creating structure. Structure is very, very important in your dog's life. It's important for them to know what's expected of them. It's important for them to know what they need to do next. If you don't give your dog structure, it can be very stressful for them. It can also lead to a variety of behavioral problems. So we're going to talk to you about some just very simple, basic things that you can do to create structure in your home to give you a happier, healthier dog as well as a better behaved dog. So the first thing we're going to talk about is managing energy levels in your home. There's a variety of ways that you can do this, and there are certain things that are going to be more appropriate in the home, and then some things that you're not going to allow in your home. Whenever you have a puppy and it's playing and it's being silly, if it gets the zoomies, that's totally fine and it's cute as a baby. However, whenever you have a 60 to 70 pound adult dog and they're running through the house and they may be knocking people over, that's not an appropriate behavior. That's not something you're gonna want long term. So this is something that you're gonna wanna create when your puppy is young, starting as quickly as when they get home. If your puppy starts to become overexcited and they start to have inappropriate play, that's something you're going to want to go ahead and correct. You're not going to want to allow them to be extremely excited in the house because that's somewhere that you want to have control and you want to be more structured. If they start running around, if they start getting the zoomies, you can use a simple verbal correction. You can let them know, that's not appropriate. You can also use your training lead, use that as a quick correction, and then give them something else to do. You can ask them to offer you a down position, you can give them a toy, give them something to focus their energy on. Now you do want to give them what we would consider unstructured play and an outlet for that energy. While it's not something that we're going to allow in the home, this is something that you can allow in your backyard. You can allow this in a less structured area and somewhere that it's not going to be a harm to anyone or anything. If you have a 70 to 80 pound dog running through the house, knocking into furniture, this can be a negative thing. However, if they're outside running through the yard, that's more appropriate. So giving unstructured playtime is going to be important, but you don't want to allow that type of play in the home. It's also important to drain your dog's energy in a variety of ways. So unstructured play is one of those. Another way to drain their energy is leash walking. And this means not allowing them to pull you, not giving them control of that walk, but doing a structured leash walk, taking them out, making sure that they're walking on your left side, they're not pulling on you, and that they're stopping and sitting whenever you stop. This is you controlling the walk. If your dog is in control of that walk, they're going to be walking ahead of you. They're not going to stop and sit whenever you ask them to do so or when you stop because they're not going to be paying attention to you. So just creating that structured walk, making sure that you practice that regularly and not allowing them to pull on that leash as well as practicing that auto sit. Now the other way to drain your dog's energy is obedience training. Now this is obviously a big part of what we do. The training is very, very important to us and we put a lot of effort into that. So it's very important that you also practice this once you get home. And it's not just so that your dog understands their commands, it's so that they have an outlet for their mental energy. So you can wear their body out, but their brain is still going to be busy. This is why you can play ball with your dog in the backyard. You can bring them in and they may go find something to get into. Whereas if you give them something more structured to do, you practice your obedience commands, you make them think, you make them focus. This is going to be a good way to drain that mental energy. That's going to give you a much happier dog. That's going to give you a much more calm, well-mannered dog. A tired dog is a happy dog, and that's an absolute truth, and that's something that you want to make sure that you continue whenever you get your puppy home as well as they grow into an adult. Now something else we're going to talk to you about is if your dog has bad manners with furniture or door manners. So we do not allow our dogs to get on the furniture. This is something that we do discourage. Number one, because you may not want a dog on the furniture. You may not want them, getting hair, whether it be drool, messing up furniture, anything like that. And it's also bad manners when you do have a large dog jumping on the sofa or jumping on you if you're sitting on the sofa, if you have guests over. So this is something that we do discourage. Now, however, if you have found this to be an issue once your puppy comes home, or as they grow into an adult, maybe this is something that you have allowed over time and now it's become an issue. There are a variety of ways to control that. If you do choose to allow your dog on the furniture, you may do so at your discretion, but we recommend doing it under control still. This means if your dog just jumps on the sofa, you don't want that allowed. You're gonna practice that with a leash. If you've already found this to be an issue, put that leash on them. Whenever they jump on the sofa, you're gonna correct them in a downwards motion. You're gonna correct them off of that sofa. Let them know that that's not appropriate, and you need to do that 100% of the time. Now, if you've decided to allow them on furniture, whether it be on a bed, whether it be on a couch, it still needs to be structured. It still needs to be when you allow them. You don't want them just jumping up there. Once again, if you have guests over, maybe you just don't want them on you all the time. Allow them on there when invited. So if you invite them to come up, give that okay, invite them up into your lap or invite them up onto the bed. But if they jump up on their own, same rule applies. You're gonna correct them off of that. You're gonna correct them off of that bed, off of that sofa, let them know that that's not appropriate. And so once again, that's, if you don't ever want them on that furniture, you're always gonna correct. You're never gonna allow them on there ever. If you do want to allow that structured with rules, then you allow only when invited, still correcting 100% of the time if they jump up without being invited. Now, where door manners, that's something that's very, very important. If you have a dog that bolts out of doors, this can be not only dangerous to them, it can be dangerous to other people. It's just something that you really never want to become a problem. So there are some things to practice this as well. Practice on leash first. This is always the most important. That way you have that control. If you go to open the door and your dog wants to run ahead of you, use that training lead, create some space. Step in front of them, correct them away from that door. Let them know that that's your space and you are controlling that area. They are only allowed out that door whenever they hear that okay, and you allow them to go out that door. We're also going to show you what this looks like a little bit as well, but this is some very strict rules that you want to keep practicing on leash first if this has become an issue. And then you can practice that off leash. You can also use your body. You can block their space. You can let them know to get out of your space. If your dog respects you, whenever you step into their space, they're going to move out of that space. If they don't move out of that space whenever you step into their space, this shows a lack of respect, and this is also something that you're going to want to work on as well. So now we're going to talk about food manners. This is also something that's very vitally important. There are only a handful of things that dogs are required to have in order to live: air, food, and water. So while we're not controlling two of those things, water is something that's extremely vital to them, as well as air. We're not controlling those things, but we can control food. And this means that if you're in control of something that your dog finds vital to live, therefore you are in charge, therefore you are the pack leader, or you are the higher person in their pack. So you want to make sure that controlling that food means when you go to make the dog's food, if they start getting really excited, go ahead and put that food back down. You want to control the buildup of energy level. This is something that's always very important, maintaining those energy levels in the house, just like we talked about a little bit. But if your dog is getting extremely excited when it's getting closer to feeding time, go ahead and kind of try to reduce that. Go ahead and let them know that, hey, that's not appropriate. If they start getting excited, put the food back. They're gonna understand very quickly every time that they produce a certain behavior that what they want to happen no longer happens. So you want your dog to be calm throughout the entire process of creating that food, of making that bowl of food, as well as taking it and feeding them in their kennel. Now, once again, we do feed in the kennel because we want to create rules. We want it to be understood, hey, this is what's expected of you. It's structured. Your dog's gonna pay attention a little bit more. They may eat that whole meal if they're in that kennel, whereas if you're leaving that food sitting out all the time, your dog is in control of that meal. So whenever you do feed, control that energy level, make sure that they stay calm. When you put that food down, if they don't eat it within, say, 20 to 30 minutes, go ahead and take that food up. Don't give it back until the next feeding time, whether it be the next evening or the next morning. This is you controlling their food intake. This is controlling their meal. This is letting them know that someone else is in control of what's going to happen. They need to eat it all right then. Don't leave free access to food, because at that point they are deciding when they're going to eat and how much they're going to eat. Whereas if you offer that food, they don't eat it, it's taken away, they're gonna learn very quickly, I need to eat that right then. Not only does this help create structure in your home, this also helps with potty training. This helps with just creating a schedule for your dog as well. Something else we're going to talk to you about is creating space and boundaries. Now, something that everyone loves is their dog to come up and cuddle with them. You want to give them affection. You want to give them as much love as possible. But you want to do this, once again, on your terms. This is something that we see often is a pushy dog, a dog that no longer respects your space and that is constantly demanding something from you, whether they're demanding attention, whether they're demanding playtime, or even demanding food. And if you offer your dog treats and they've learned to go to their treat cabinet and demand that, then you want to no longer give that. You don't want to reward that behavior. If you have a dog that comes and brings you toys and is constantly pushing you for attention, if they're taking their face and their nose and they're bumping into you constantly, they are demanding attention. While most people think that's cute, oh, they want to be petted. That's your dog saying, hey, pet me now. So once again, that's not appropriate. That's them being a little more of a brat. You want it to be on your terms. This doesn't mean that you never give your dog love. This means that you love them on your terms. If your dog comes to you and they're being extremely pushy, stand up, move the dog out of your space. Make them understand that that's your space and they need to move out of it, and they can come into that space when invited. So whenever they have given you adequate space, and that adequate space can just be one step away. then you invite them in. You let them know that, hey, that's exactly what you wanted from them, and you reward that. You only want to reward the good behaviors, and you can either correct or ignore those bad behaviors. Let them know that's no longer going to get them the desired response. Now, creating space is also very important for kids, because having a dog, whether it be a small dog or a large dog, you don't want them to think that your children are, whether it be a play toy, a playmate. You want them to understand that a child is always in control of them as well. And this may mean if you have small children that you create that space for them, that you let them know that the child is your possession. This means if the dog is being inappropriate with the child, if they're too close, if they're being pushy, use your training lead as well as using your body and create that space. Make them move out of the space of your child. Therefore, they're going to understand that they aren't in control of the child either. Now, another way to create space and boundaries is to control resources. So this means that not only have we talked about not giving access to free food, this means toys as well. So for puppies, we do want to make sure that they have acceptable things to chew on most of the time. But this doesn't mean that as they get older, you still need to leave that free access. If they constantly have free access to toys, to bones, they may become possessive of those, because at that point they belong to them. Whereas if you are controlling those resources, then they belong to you. When you go to offer your dog something, whether it be a toy or a bone, they should never snatch that away from you. If they do that, then that's a problem. You want to make sure that we can kind of correct that. If you offer something to your dog and they go for it, you can use that verbal correction. Let them know, hey, that's not acceptable. They need to wait until you offer that. As well as if they have something and you go to take it away and either they show a negative response if the dog growls, if they just move away with whatever it is that they have, that's still a negative response. That's still showing you some disrespect. So you want to work on that as well. They should offer you things willingly. And there's a couple ways to practice that. Number one is you can start with 2 toys. You can give them 1 toy, and then you can trade them out another toy. That way that they're understanding you're not always taking it away, but you are still controlling that. While we want it to be positive, we want it to be something that they don't dread you walking to them, they don't think that it's a negative. There's also, once again, that respect there. That if you're going to take something from them, they should willingly give you that up. And then the last thing we're going to talk to you about creating space and rules and just structure in your home is when and how to use the crate, and when and how to use the cot and or place. And these are things that we teach them. We talk to you about how to use them in some of our videos, but we often get asked, when do we do this? And what is the appropriate time frame and how to use that? So whenever you're practicing with the crate, this is obviously something that we recommend your dog sleep in. And some people do transition away from using the crate, but we like to use the crate because it creates boundaries. You're controlling them. Your dog is not able to make well-informed decisions because that's something that they're just generally not capable of. They can't let you know that they're tired. They can't let you know that they're overwhelmed. So having the crate as a safe place and giving them structure, letting them know when it's time to go to bed, letting them know when it's time to just, hey, go hang out and chill for a little while. That's a great thing to use the crate for. Having them on a schedule, sleeping in the crate, that lets them know what's expected. But it's very important to give your dog some structured time away from you in the crate, even during the day. This means if you're home or if you're leaving. Something that we see often is that everyone spends a lot of time with their puppies whenever they first get them home. And then after they start to go back to their normal life, that puppy has a hard time readjusting to being left alone and being in the crate. So practicing a little bit of supervised separation in the crate, this means putting them in there for a few hours while you're at home, giving them some time just to hang out, just to chill. This is creating structure. This is controlling your environment. This is saying, okay, I'm gonna give you something else to do. This is also letting them know that they can be okay by themselves. So there's 2 parts that make that very, very important. Dogs are pack animals, so it can be a little unnatural for them to be left alone. And that is where that separation anxiety and some issues can come in. So if you go ahead and practice that more often than not, then you're not gonna have those issues long-term with your dog. Now, place is another thing that we use, we highly recommend, and it's extremely useful in your home. Place is just a structured area to give your dog. Essentially, it's a timeout without being punishment. It's giving your dog somewhere to go, somewhere to hang out, but it's not ever negative. We always want it to be positive, and you can give them food, you can give them toys, you can give them treats on place as long as they maintain that position. Now, place is for if you want to cook dinner and you don't want your dog in your area, in your space, you're teaching them that they have somewhere else to go, that you're controlling that space, that environment. If you have guests coming over and you don't want your dog right in the middle of everything, you don't want them being pushy to people, put them on place. Let them know that, hey, this is where you need to be and this is structured. This is just giving them something else to focus on. Or even if they're being a little bit silly, if they're being a little bit rambunctious, just like we talked about in the beginning about maintaining control of the energy level in your home. This is also a great thing to use plays for. If the dog is getting a little excited, maybe has a little more energy than they should, just let them go to place, give them some time to calm down, and then allow them to come off. So once again, not negative, it's just something to use to control that environment. It's a place to give your dog that just lets them know, hey, this is what's expected of you, these are your boundaries and your rules. So while that's a lot of information, these are some great tools and tips for you to use in your home just on a regular basis. And these are things that are going to help long-term. This is not something that's going to be a short-term fix. If you are seeing some, mild behavioral issues with your dog, or if you just want to prevent that from ever happening, and you want to make sure that you have just a very happy, well-balanced, well-mannered member of your household, all these tips are going to help immensely. They're going to create more structure in your home. They're going to create more balance in your home. So we highly recommend that you just go ahead and implement these things as much as possible, because maintaining and having a well-mannered dog is a way of life. It's not something that you just do and then it goes away. So that's what we are here for. We're here to help you maintain just a happy household for the duration of your dog's life. We hope this video helps, and thank you so much.